It was a quiet afternoon at a small town bus station, the kind of place where people kept to themselves and life moved slowly. But that peace was shattered when a gang of rowdy bikers rolled in, their loud engines and over-the-top antics grabbing everyone's attention. They seemed to enjoy making others uncomfortable, targeting anyone who looked like an easy victim. Among the crowd was a woman sitting quietly on a bench, her calm demeanor making her an easy target, or so they thought. What the bikers didn't realize was that this wasn't just any woman. She was a military veteran, someone who had faced challenges far greater than a few troublemakers at a bus station. As the bikers closed in, their taunts growing louder, she remained calm. But then something changed in her expression. What happened next left everyone in the station stunned. The woman adjusted her posture slightly, sitting straighter as the bikers moved closer. Her sharp eyes scanned them, but she didn't say a word. She looked out of place in the chaos, dressed simply, a small duffel bag at her feet, and an air of calm confidence that seemed unshaken by their jeers. It wasn't just the bikers who noticed her now. Others at the station began to shift uncomfortably, wondering what would happen next. The gang leader, a tall man with a booming laugh, swaggered toward her. "You too good to look at us," he sneered, his voice echoing in the waiting area. A few of his crew laughed, egging him on. Still, she said nothing. She didn't flinch, didn't react. But there was something in the way she met his gaze, steady, unblinking, that made even some of the bikers hesitate. The tension in the air was thick, and the station grew eerily quiet. The leader leaned in closer, trying to intimidate her. "You got a problem, lady, or are you just too scared to speak?" He taunted, his voice dripping with mockery. The other bikers laughed, but there was an unease in the group now, like they weren't entirely sure this was going to go the way they thought. She slowly stood up, her duffel bag brushing against her leg as she rose. She was taller than they expected, her presence commanding despite her quiet demeanor. The leader's smirk faltered just slightly, but he quickly masked it with another loud laugh. "Oh, now we're talking. What are you gonna do, huh?" Still calm, she looked him square in the eye. Her voice was steady, almost too quiet for the room. "Do you really want to find out?" The bikers exchanged uneasy glances. The tension was palpable, the kind of moment where no one dared to breathe. People in the station watched intently, unsure if they should step in or stay out of it. What could one woman do against a gang? But something about her presence made everyone wonder if the odds weren't quite as uneven as they appeared. The leader scoffed, trying to shake off his unease. "Big talk," he said, stepping closer, his voice louder now to mask his uncertainty. The rest of the gang circled around, their laughter forced as they tried to match his energy. The crowd in the station shifted nervously, some looking toward the exits, others frozen in place. It felt like something was about to snap. The woman didn't back down. She reached for her duffel bag, her movements deliberate. A flicker of tension ran through the gang as they watched her unzip it, half expecting her to pull out something that would turn the tide in an instant. Instead, she calmly pulled out a neatly folded jacket with military patches on the sleeve. The sight of it was enough to make the leader pause mid-step. His bravado cracked, just for a second, as he recognized the insignia. "What's this supposed to mean?" He blurted out, his voice not as steady as before. She didn't answer. Instead, she carefully draped the jacket over her arm, her posture still calm but unyielding. "I faced worse than you," she said, her voice cutting through the tension like a blade. The gang hesitated. They weren't laughing anymore. The leader stood frozen for a moment, the patches on her jacket triggering something he couldn't ignore. The rest of the gang began to shift uneasily, their confidence waning as the atmosphere in the room thickened. The woman's calmness was unsettling. It wasn't the reaction they were used to. But just as the leader opened his mouth to respond, a voice called out from the far side of the station. You might want to listen to her. All eyes turned to a man standing by the vending machines. He was dressed casually, but his sharp gaze and commanding tone carried the same quiet authority as hers. He nodded toward her jacket. That's not just for show. I know because I served with her. The leader's bravado cracked further as whispers rippled through the onlookers. You've got to be kidding me, one of the bikers muttered, glancing nervously at his crew. The woman didn't look at the man who spoke up, but there was a faint hint of acknowledgement in her expression. This isn't your fight, she said softly, her words aimed at him. But he didn't move, his steady presence reinforcing the tension in the room. The gang leader clenched his fists, trying to salvage control. We don't care who she is, he barked, though his voice lacked its earlier confidence. She's just one person. The man by the vending machine stepped forward, his footsteps echoing in the silence. One person is sometimes all it takes, he said, his tone steady. The bikers now found themselves facing not one calm, unshaken individual, but two. The tension in the room spiked as everyone braced for what would happen next. The leader clenched his jaw, his eyes darting between the woman and the man who had stepped in. His crew stood behind him, their earlier swagger replaced by uncertainty. The woman held her ground, calm and unyielding, her silence more powerful than any threat. The tension hung heavy, everyone in the station waiting to see who would make the first move. Finally, the leader took a step forward, pointing a finger at her. You think you're tough because of some patches and a stare. Let's see you back it up. Before she could respond, the man from the vending machines interrupted. You've already lost, he said, his voice calm but firm. Look around. The gang turned, realizing for the first time that the station wasn't as empty as they'd assumed. Several people had pulled out their phones, recording everything. The bikers' confidence shattered as the reality of their situation set in. The woman took a single step closer, her voice quiet but sharp. You can leave now and walk away with your dignity. Or you can keep pushing and find out how much worse this can get for you. The leader hesitated, the weight of the moment pressing down on him. Finally, he raised his hands in mock surrender, muttering, "This isn't worth it." With a sharp nod to his crew, he turned on his heel and walked out, the others following quickly behind him. As the bikers' engines roared to life outside, the tension in the room eased. The woman picked up her bag, her expression unchanged. The man who had spoken earlier approached her, a small smile tugging at his lips. Still making an impression, I see. She glanced at him, her eyes softening just a little. It's good to know some things don't change. But as they exchanged a brief nod, one of the onlookers approached cautiously. Ma'am, he said nervously, holding out a phone, you might want to see this. On the screen was a live stream of the confrontation, already going viral. The woman's eyes narrowed slightly, the faintest trace of amusement crossing her face. Well, she said, that's one way to tell a story. The station slowly returned to normal as people began to disperse, the tension dissolving into murmurs of disbelief and relief. The woman, now wearing her jacket, slung her duffel bag over her shoulder. She glanced at the man who had spoken up, giving him a faint smile. Thanks for stepping in, she said. He shrugged, grinning. Couldn't let you have all the fun. As the two exchanged a brief handshake, a young woman from the crowd approached, her phone still in hand. That was incredible, she said, her voice full of admiration. You didn't even have to raise your voice. Who asterisk or asterisk you? The woman gave a small, knowing smile. Just someone who's seen worse and knows when to stand her ground. With that, she walked toward the bus pulling into the station. As she boarded, A new sense of calm settled over the station, leaving everyone with a story they'd never forget.